CBS News weather producer David Parkinson has been tracking the storm, and he is joining us now at the table. So, David, what you normally receive an 11 a.m. briefing, what have you heard?
So this is brand new details. The storm is back down to a Category 2, so that is new. But the threat that this thing presents does not change. The difference between a 3 or 2 is 5 miles an hour. And this was never really a story about just how much wind was going to be coming on land, although that is part of it. The real concern we have is the amount of rain and the amount of storm surge. So the real big problem that we have in terms of the amount of rain is we've already got nearly half a foot in the Charleston area, and there's still at least another half a foot to go. So as a result, we do have a flash flood warning, and that is in effect, as you can see right there, for that area shaded in green around Charleston, and then also outside of Myrtle Beach as well. Both of those places have been getting these really heavy bands, and that is part of the problem. So a wider look at the radar shows you that those bands extend well into North Carolina, and that northeast quadrant is the other thing that we're watching out for there. Basically what happens is the front right quadrant is what we call the dirty quadrant, right? That's where you get the worst storm surge, the worst wind, and then also the chance for tornadoes. And in fact, we have a tornado watch that is covering everywhere shaded in yellow. So from Myrtle Beach up through Wilmington, up through the Outer Banks, anywhere shaded in yellow, that is a tornado watch. Anywhere shaded in red is a tornado warning. I've counted at least 3 dozen tornado warnings since 5 a.m. this morning. We've got at least half a dozen tornadoes that have touched down. We have seen damage from them. So that is not a trivial threat, but the latest stats will show you that the 110-mile-an-hour storm is finally moving to the north-northeast. That's the direction we want it to go, because that's the direction that's away from land. And that is 65 miles southeast of Charleston. And there is the latest track that we have right now. So by 8 p.m. Thursday, you can see it is parallel to the North Carolina-South Carolina border. And then by 8 a.m. Friday, this thing's nearly out of here. It is in the Outer Banks, and it is in its last legs.
So officials have been talking a lot about storm surge. Tell us what the concern is, and tell people about tide too, because that makes a difference as well.
Right. So you need the high tide to get that worst storm surge. So the high tide this afternoon is around the 1 o'clock hour. There was a high tide this morning that we thought was going to be really bad in Savannah.
Like
it did not happen. Okay. Correct. So the 1 a.m. high tide was not that bad in Savannah. It didn't happen at the time of heaviest rainfall, and that sort of allowed them to dodge the bullet. The thing that we're having this time around is, in fact, a high tide at the time of heavy rain, so that's one problem for them. And then in addition, the storm is now closer. The waves continue to pile on. It's a counterclockwise flow basically around the storm. This is a look at where we've got that storm surge threat. So you can see in the Charleston area, it's generally a 2 to 4 with a 4 to 6, and an isolated 6 to 8 is what we've got there. But you can see that flash flood threat, that storm surge threat extends up into Myrtle Beach and then also up towards Wilmington and the Outer Banks. So it is not limited to all those places, because what happens is the wind piles the water into the bays. So a lot of times you don't actually get storm surge flooding on the ocean. You get it in the bays and rivers, because that's where everything's been shoved up into. And so when you get that high tide, plus all of that water getting pushed in, it can't go back out like it would like to, and that's where you get that really serious problem.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vlad.
Hurricane Dorian is expected to make landfall in North Carolina later on today, and Jonathan Vigliotti is there in the town of Carolina Beach. That's just south of Wilmington. What is it looking like now for you?
Yeah, Anne Marie, we're starting to feel the outer bands of this storm, and as they reach us, we're getting moments of relative calm like right now, followed by some really pounding wind and the rain that comes with it. This is the front line of the storm in this area. We're already starting to see some flooding like what you see behind me. Amazing, considering we still have more than 20 hours to go. At its peak, we're expecting wind gusts of up to 80, maybe 100 miles an hour. I'm walking you this way to show you what the biggest concern is, and it's what's happening up and down this coast. It's the ocean, and of course the storm surge that comes in with it. We're talking about 4 to 7 feet. That's taller than me and taller than some of these dunes here, which are protecting this coastal community. So you can imagine flooding is going to be a big issue. It's one of the reasons this area and many of the areas around it are under this mandatory evacuation. I also want to tell you about tornadoes. We have confirmation of 3 tornadoes, one of them touching down about 40 miles from where we are. We saw some pretty devastating video from just how quickly that twister came in and caused destruction. The sheriff's department there telling us that fortunately nobody was injured. But as we look forward to the next few hours, the next 20 hours, as Dorian makes its way here, it's not just the surge, it's not just the wind. The inland communities here also really need to be focused in on this storm because of all the rainfall. We're expecting about 10 inches or so. That is enough to submerge cars, to flood homes. It's why when police tell people to leave, they mean it. And they're saying if you've decided to stay in this area, to stay inside, to seek higher ground, don't go out on the roads as Dorian approaches.
So, Jonathan, as you know, Carolina Beach was essentially wiped off the map by a hurricane back in 1954. That was Hurricane Hazel. Hurricane Florence hit the area just last year. How are locals preparing for this storm? I mean, I'm sure there are still some people who may remember Hazel way back when.
Yeah, and obviously more recently, Florence, which was a Category 1, I believe, when it reached here last year. Yeah, this area, any area along the coast, is no stranger to hurricanes. People here generally do take these warnings seriously. And I mean, we've been driving around all morning. We've been planted here as well. You see some of the people that come out here on the beach. I didn't even know they were here. And they're walking around. Some are enjoying this for the time being. But for the most part, we have seen businesses boarded up. We have seen homes sandbagged, clear signs that this town is emptied out. You know, the airport here, they know how this goes. Wilmington Airport closed down yesterday. I was en route to Wilmington. That didn't work out. I went to Durham and had to drive here this morning. It was early, but still there was nobody on the streets, just police officers. Of course, you do get the people that are very familiar with storms who do come out here and look at these waves. We have seen police officers all day here on this beach coming out here to tell them to leave. Some people we've seen going out into the water. Amory, I think I was talking to you when that happened. People enjoying the water when really they should be out of it, and police saying this is a storm to take serious as it approaches.
You understand the beauty of a stormy ocean. I mean, it really is sort of intoxicating and great to watch. But people, there are other things you should be doing right now.
Be careful out there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jonathan, thank you so much.
Thank you.